That Christmas party was meant to be flawless until I stood silently outside the slightly open door. My name is Olivia A. I am 32 years old, but that night felt like the conclusion of a lifetime spent trying to find where I belong. As I lifted my hand to knock, I suddenly stopped because I distinctly heard a toast celebrating my absence coming from the familiar voices of my parents, along with a cruel addition from my older sister. The total absence of any objection from the invited guests in that living room, combined with their quiet agreement, created a chilling feeling that finally made me understand my real place within this toxic family circle. My mum laughed loudly as she raised her glass. Twos. Absolutely great that Olivia didn't come today. My sister quickly added in a harsh tone to support them. No one likes having her here anyway. Instead of opening the door and causing a loud scene, in front of everyone, I calmly set the expensive gift box down on the porch with firm resolve. As if putting out the very last hope I had for our family bond, I turned around and walked back to my car in total silence without shedding a single tear because my anger had turned into a cold determination. If you're watching this story, leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from and what time it is where you are, so I can see how far my story has reached. 3 months before that fateful Christmas night. The real break in our family started when a heated argument erupted right inside the living room of this same house. I originally bought this luxurious property in the Dundee neighborhood to give my parents a comfortable place for retirement so they could enjoy their later years in peace. However, they fully allowed my older sister Shannon to move into the guest wing with them so she could live entirely off my personal finances without making any effort of her own. On that particular afternoon, the cosmetics company, owned by Shannon, was on the very edge of bankruptcy because of her consistently poor management habits and excessive corporate spending. Parents immediately called me to the house to strongly pressure me into putting my personal savings into her business to save her failing situation before the bank stepped in. I calmly asked for a detailed review of her accounting books before making any financial decisions about her unstable business venture. After spending an hour going through the messy numbers, I quickly realized her company was a bottomless financial black hole that could never be saved by a simple cash injection. The records showed unreasonable expenses for luxury client dinners and unnecessary travel. While the core revenue kept falling week after week, I firmly refused to throw my hard-earned money away on a business that had absolutely no chance of survival under her incompetent leadership. Mum glared at me with intense disappointment while raising her voice in strong defense of her favorite child. You have more than enough money in your corporate accounts to save your sister from losing everything she has built over the last 2 years. I kept my composure while sliding the disastrous financial documents back across the glass coffee table toward them. I will not fund a failing business simply because we share the same bloodline. When the accounting clearly shows massive, irresponsible spending, my logical refusal was met with harsh and immediate backlash from my parents who completely refused to accept the reality of the situation. They quickly changed their previously welcoming attitude toward me and sharply berated me for being a cold and extremely selfish person who did not care about family loyalty or supporting my own sibling. Their unreasonable anger officially started a bitter cold war within the household, as they showed their extreme displeasure through endless silent treatments and daily glaring looks. Remembering the strict professional advice from my lawyer, Marcus had previously required me to include a property revocation clause in the house purchase contract. I decided it was finally time to set firm boundaries. I realized that my continuous financial support over the past few years had only created de-entitlement instead of gratitude among the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. As a result, I officially informed my parents and Shannon that I would no longer cover their luxury credit card expenses or support their daily living costs beyond the basic maintenance of the property itself. The firm action of cutting off payments for all, their unreasonable shopping bills, was the first major step that pushed our ongoing family conflict to its absolute peak. They truly believed they were completely entitled to my wealth simply because they raised me and shared my DNA. This necessary financial restriction caused them to see me as an enemy, rather than a successful daughter who had already provided to them with a beautiful home. Their complete refusal to accept my reasonable financial limits confirmed that our relationship had been entirely transactional from the very beginning. I walked out of the house that afternoon feeling a deep sense of isolation, despite knowing I had made the only responsible decision available to protect my own future. 2 months later, everything suddenly took a very suspicious turn when my family began showing some extremely unusual financial behaviors that completely contradicted their previous desperate situation. Despite the clear fact that her cosmetics company generated absolutely no revenue and remained buried in massive corporate debt, Shannon unexpectedly started posting a constant stream of extravagant updates across all her social media platforms. She proudly displayed the recent purchase of a brand new luxury vehicle, along with multiple photos from very expensive resort vacations, without showing a single concern in the world about her failing business responsibilities. My best friend, Clara, came over to visit my apartment that weekend to offer her emotional support, while helping me carefully examine the obvious financial inconsistencies in my family's new spending habits. Her comforting presence greatly eased my deep sense of isolation after being completely rejected by my own family for simply protecting my personal wealth during our earlier argument. Sitting across from me at the kitchen island with a very serious expression on her face, she clearly expressed the exact concerns that had been troubling my mind all morning. Do you not find this entire situation extremely strange, considering her recent business failures and massive unpaid invoices? Clara asked while pointing directly at the flashy vacation photos currently displayed on the glowing tablet screen. Someone standing on the very edge of complete bankruptcy cannot simply use a credit card to purchase a luxury sports car unless she suddenly came across a huge amount of money from nowhere. So I nodded in full agreement because the clear mathematical reality of her newly acquired lavish lifestyle simply did not match her disastrous business records or her lack of personal savings. Just thinking the exact same thing while looking at those ridiculous online posts. I replied with a growing sense of fear slowly settling in my stomach regarding their sudden wealth. I will immediately hire a professional to carefully investigate the hidden source of this completely suspicious cash flow before things get completely out of control and involve my own assets. Trusting my strong intuition that something seriously wrong was happening behind my back, I decided to secretly hire my private detective, Victor, to carry out a complete financial investigation into the mysterious origin of the money Shannon was currently spending freely. I provided him with all the necessary background details regarding her failing company, along with my parents' sudden shift in financial behavior, so he could track every single transaction accurately without missing any important details. He assured me that financial records always leave a permanent digital trail that cannot be easily erased by arrogant individuals trying to hide their sudden influx of questionable money. After reviewing the initial preliminary data regarding their recent bank deposits, Victor firmly instructed me to maintain a completely normal attitude and avoid asking any probing questions so we would not accidentally alert them to our ongoing background investigation. By an incredibly convenient coincidence, arriving just days later, my parents unexpectedly sent me a formal invitation to attend their upcoming Christmas party. Hosted at the very house I had originally purchased for them. The handwritten note placed inside the festive envelope carried a highly uncharacteristic tone of fake reconciliation that immediately put me on high alert regarding their true hidden intentions. They falsely claimed they wanted to put our past financial disagreements firmly behind us so we could celebrate the upcoming holidays together as a happily reunited family. I ultimately decided to accept their highly suspicious party, an invitation to successfully maintain my safe cover, while ensuring they remained completely unaware of my strategic legal countermoves. Attending this festive gathering would smoothly create the perfect psychological distraction to provide Victor with the crucial extra time he desperately needed to finish collecting the final evidence without raising any unwanted suspicion or defensive reactions from my family members. 1 week before the upcoming Christmas holiday, the dark truth was finally revealed when Victor carefully placed a thick investigative folder directly onto the center of my wooden office desk, sat across from me, with a serious expression that immediately confirmed my worst suspicions regarding my family's sudden display of wealth over the past 2 months. The financial report contained within those pages clearly exposed the reality, that my parents had actively helped Shannon in intentionally forging official property documents. They had maliciously worked together to completely remove the protective property revocation clause that I had originally attached to the deed of the house they were currently living in. My supposed loved ones had recklessly used the residential property registered entirely under my legal name to secure a bank mortgage, without ever seeking my direct permission or providing any prior notice. They somehow managed to successfully bypass the standard verification procedures by submitting falsified paperwork to illegally borrow a staggering sum of $185,000 against an asset they did not actually own. Victor leaned forward slightly, while pointing directly at a highlighted section of the fraudulent bank application containing an exact copy of my handwriting. They forged your signature to completely remove the revocation clause so the mortgage loan, worth $185,000, was successfully issued by the bank. I stared silently at the falsified documents, in complete disgust for a few moments, before responding with a tone of cold determination that left absolutely no room for any further negotiation or discussion. It is absolutely unbelievable that they dared to intentionally violate federal law in such a clear manner just to fund her extravagant lifestyle. Send this entire file to Marcus immediately, because I want an emergency eviction order sitting ready on my desk by tomorrow morning. The banking statements clearly showed that the stolen funds were transferred directly into paying off Shannon's heavily overdue credit card balances from her failing cosmetics venture. The remaining stolen capital continuously supported her newly acquired spending habits by completely funding the luxury vehicle and those expensive resort vacations she had been proudly showing across the internet over the past few weeks. It became painfully obvious that my parents were perfectly willing to commit federal mortgage fraud just to maintain the false illusion of success for their absolute favorite child, while completely destroying my financial security. Fully realizing that my parents' toxic favoritism had officially crossed the boundary from moral failure into the area of serious financial crimes, I immediately forwarded the entire evidence file to Marcus for swift legal prosecution. After receiving the shocking documents, Marcus quickly confirmed that their bold actions constituted a serious felony offense that would guarantee my complete victory in any upcoming courtroom battle to reclaim my stolen assets. I could no longer offer any leniency to people who deliberately planned a criminal conspiracy to rob me of my personal wealth just to satisfy their own selfish desires. The overwhelming sense of betrayal completely erased any remaining hesitation I might have previously held regarding their coming legal punishment and complete removal from my life. Marcus and I therefore spent the next several days working tirelessly alongside his legal team to prepare an airtight emergency eviction order that would ensure immediate execution. Upon receiving a signature of approval from the presiding judge, we carefully reviewed every single legal detail to make sure my family would have absolutely no legal loopholes or escape options. Once the harsh reality of their criminal actions finally caught up with them during the holidays, he successfully presented the undeniable evidence of fraud to the court system to quickly obtain the necessary legal documentation. granting me full authorization to reclaim my stolen property without any required warning. Period. We firmly agreed to use their upcoming fake reconciliation Christmas party as the perfect opportunity to completely expose their unforgivable deceit and permanently cut ties with the people who had shamelessly taken advantage of my generosity. That weekend, an unexpected traffic accident across the main highway caused me to arrive exactly 1 hour late for the scheduled holiday gathering, while the surrounding streets of Omaha remained completely covered in a freezing silence. The moment my boots stepped onto the wooden porch of the property, I coincidentally overheard the exact same cruel toast coming from my parents, along with Shannon's malicious additions. Just like my earlier experience standing before the cracked door. Hearing their genuine laughter over my deliberate absence served as the absolute final straw that completely shattered any remaining illusions I held regarding our biological connection or their capacity for basic human decency. Their extremely toxic sarcasm provided the ultimate confirmation that my family only wanted me to permanently disappear, so they could successfully take total control over my hard-earned financial assets without facing any legal interference. Instead of storming inside to confront their blatant hypocrisy in front of their invited audience, I immediately stepped back to the quiet safety of my locked vehicle to contact Marcus regarding our prepared legal strategy. I needed to make sure everything was perfectly aligned with the local authorities before delivering the ultimate consequence onto their ongoing holiday celebration without providing them any opportunity to escape. Marcus answered the incoming phone call immediately with a very serious tone to discuss the pending legal situation. The emergency eviction order has been officially approved by the presiding judge earlier today. Are you absolutely certain you want to carry out this severe legal action right now during the freezing holiday night? I stared at the brightly lit windows of my stolen house while gripping the steering wheel with complete certainty regarding my final decision. Execute the order immediately without any further delay because their cruel party has officially reached its permanent end tonight. Or day. After ending the brief phone call with Marcus, I sat silently behind the steering wheel, watching the shadows of the party guests moving across the living room blinds, while waiting for the unavoidable consequences of their criminal actions to finally arrive at their doorstep. There was no remaining guilt inside my heart because they had consciously chosen to commit federal mortgage fraud, while treating my existence as nothing more than a convenient bank account to fund their extravagant desires. I felt a powerful sense of relief, knowing that the exhausting cycle of manipulation was finally coming to a definite halt. Under the strict enforcement of local law, the official law enforcement officers arrived at the residential property within 30 minutes to quickly enter the crowded house and forcefully interrupt the ongoing holiday festivities with unquestionable authority. They immediately cut off the loud audio system playing through the living room, before firmly ordering all the confused guests to leave the premises in a state of complete shock. The completely confused partygoers quickly rushed toward their parked vehicles while whispering among themselves about the sudden police presence, abruptly ending their free evening of drinking and celebrating. My family members loudly tried to argue with the uniformed officers, but were quickly silenced by the undeniable validity of the court documents bearing a legitimate judicial signature. Sitting completely silently inside my darkened vehicle, parked safely across the quiet street, I carefully watched the chaotic eviction scene unfolding exactly according to my planned legal strategy, without missing a single important detail. I observed the armed police officers forcing my parents along with Shannon to quickly pack their essential personal belongings under strict, continuous supervision. The strict law enforcement authorities gave the three of them exactly 60 short minutes to completely leave the residential property they had illegally used for their own selfish financial gain. They eventually dragged their hastily packed suitcases out into the freezing winter, night while looking extremely desperate after officially losing the comfortable shelter I had originally provided for them. The heavy front door was finally locked, shut by the authorities to officially end their prolonged period of financial exploitation and deceit. The following morning, the peaceful silence of my apartment was suddenly broken when an overwhelming flood of text messages continuously hit my cellular phone without any pause. The notifications sounded relentlessly against the wood nightstand as I slowly realized that the consequences of last night had already begun spreading across the internet. Showing absolutely zero signs of genuine remorse for her previous criminal actions, Shannon immediately turned to various popular social media platforms to aggressively play the innocent victim in front of her online followers. She posted highly manipulative messages, blatantly twisting the objective truth by falsely claiming that I had heartlessly forced our elderly parents out into the freezing winter streets. Her fabricated digital story quickly gained significant attention from distant relatives who began calling me constantly to express their misinformed anger over my supposed cruelty. My parents decided to escalate their malicious retaliation even further by officially filing a serious legal complaint with the local Adult Protective Services Agency. They deliberately submitted false accusations, claiming that I was currently experiencing a severe psychological breakdown in a desperate attempt to legally take away my rightful control over my personal financial assets. A formal representative from the welfare agency arrived at my corporate office later that afternoon to conduct a mandatory investigation into my mental competency based on their ridiculous claims. She sat across my wooden desk with a very serious expression to thoroughly explain the legal nature of her sudden presence during my busy working hours. We received an emergency report stating that you are currently showing signs of mental instability and are not mentally capable enough to properly manage your financial assets. The agency representative stated clearly. I calmly unlocked my desk drawer to retrieve my fully organized documents to firmly counter their malicious allegations without showing any signs of emotional distress. 2. Here are my recent medical records, along with my fully transparent financial reports to prove my complete competence. The truly unstable individuals are the ones actively trying to seize my personal assets by submitting this completely report to your government office, maintaining absolute composure throughout the entire official interview. I easily provided the investigating agent with comprehensive health evaluations and perfectly maintained accounting ledgers that clearly proves my complete mental competence. I also presented the digital communication logs, proving that their ridiculous complaint was simply a retaliatory tactic designed to punish me for the legal eviction. My overwhelming collection of undeniable physical proof caused their defamatory legal complaint to be officially dismissed on the spot, without facing any further bureaucratic difficulties or unnecessary delays. They foolishly believed they could manipulate the legal system to declare me incompetent to manage my wealth. But their reckless strategy completely failed against my strong preparations. Simultaneously, the massive public uproar my family had fleshly created across multiple social media channels accidentally caught the attention of the financial institution holding their illegitimate mortgage loan. The sudden digital spotlight prompted the very cautious banking executives to begin an immediate internal review regarding all the submitted legal paperwork associated with the recently mortgaged residential property. They assigned a specialized team of professional financial auditors to carefully examine every single document that had been filed by my sister during the initial loan approval process. Several months ago, markers contacted me through a secure phone line shortly before dinner time to deliver some incredibly satisfying news regarding the rapid downfall of their fraudulent financial scheme. He confidently informed me that the banking investigators had already discovered the clear signs of forged signatures deeply embedded within Shannon's submitted loan application documents. Because of this undeniable discovery of blatant financial deception, The financial institution was currently preparing the necessary legal procedures to completely freeze all of her associated bank accounts. This swift banking action effectively cut off her entire illegal cash flow, while officially triggering the beginning of a massive federal fraud investigation that would ensure she faced the maximum possible legal consequences for her deceitful actions. Exactly 1 week later, I decided to completely put an end to the rapidly escalating public relations nightmare by scheduling a formal press conference with several prominent local media outlets operating within the city. Instead of wasting my valuable time engaging in pointless online arguments across social media platforms, I decisively released the hidden security camera footage capturing their incredibly cruel holiday toast. Distributing this undeniable audiovisual evidence to the attending journalists successfully exposed their true malicious faces while permanently destroying the fake victim narrative they had carefully constructed for the gullible internet audience. The crystal-clear audio recording of them celebrating my absence provided the exact objective proof needed to justify my extreme eviction decision without requiring any further emotional explanation from my legal team. I continuously maintained strict professional composure while publicly exposing the entire fraudulent mortgage application portfolio directly to the flashing cameras of the assembled reporters inside the rented conference room, by presenting the undeniable banking documents containing the illegally forged signatures alongside the comprehensive detective report. I successfully transformed a petty family dispute into a highly publicized federal financial fraud case, featuring completely irrefutable physical evidence. Almost immediately following the live television broadcast, public opinion completely turned against my deceitful relatives as a massive wave of harsh online criticism was aggressively directed straight. Shannon, furious digital backlash quickly forced multiple crowdfunding platforms to permanently shut down the fraudulent fundraising accounts she had recently created to illegitimately collect legal defense donations from sympathetic internet strangers who finally realized they were being scammed by a verified financial criminal. Completely cornered by the undeniable public evidence, my parents frantically arrived at my corporate parking lot later that afternoon to physically block my vehicle from leaving the premises. They desperately tried to use pathetic crocodile tears while shifting the entire blame onto Shannon, claiming her criminal actions were simply the result of momentary youthful impulsiveness rather than calculated deception. Mom aggressively grabbed the handle of my car door with a highly distressed expression while crying hysterically in a clear attempt to manipulate my emotions right in front of the surrounding office buildings. Olivia, I am begging you to please withdraw the investigative files because Shannon was just being momentarily foolish and we are still a family after all. Mum pleaded loudly while trying to maintain her tight physical grip on my vehicle. I stared at her tear-stained face with absolute emotional detachment before delivering my final unyielding response without raising my voice, committing severe financial fraud for $185,000. Is absolutely not simple foolishness because it is a serious federal crime. The strict legal system would firmly enforce the necessary punishments that our broken family ties clearly could not resolve. I decisively pushed the heavy car door open and stepped securely inside my vehicle while completely ignoring their frantic apologies. Echoing across the empty concrete parking structure, I coldly declared through the lowered driver window that serious financial crimes could never be magically resolved by shedding manipulative tears in a corporate parking lot. The appropriate time for offering pathetic family apologies had officially expired the moment they decided to illegally leverage my residential property behind my back. Without showing a single ounce of hesitation or lingering guilt, I smoothly drove away from the corporate building, leaving my parents standing completely alone on the cold pavement. I deliberately abandoned them in that empty lot to face the inevitable legal consequences resulting from their disastrous choice to blindly enable a financial criminal at my personal expense. 3 months later, All the chaotic public noise finally subsided as I sat completely silently on the wooden bench inside the freezing courtroom, carefully listening to every sworn statement from the presiding judge. The Honorable Judge meticulously reviewed the entire mountain of irrefutable banking evidence alongside the security footage before officially delivering an exceptionally strict judicial sentence that permanently changed their futures. The court strictly mandated that Shannon must completely relinquish her personal freedom by serving a mandatory sentence inside a federal facility to properly answer for her severe financial deception. Furthermore, the final judicial order legally required her to provide full economic restitution to completely compensate the defrauded financial/institution for the stolen $185,000. With no possibility of declaring bankruptcy to avoid her obligations, because of their direct involvement in orchestrating the fraudulent mortgage application. My parents were left entirely empty-handed after permanently losing the comfortable retirement home I had generously provided for them over the past several years. They are now burdened with an enormous mountain of financial debt while struggling to survive in complete social isolation. As our entire extended family immediately cut ties the moment their true malicious nature was publicly exposed, or knows. Sigh. I confidently walked out of the heavy courthouse doors at a steady pace, deliberately leaving behind their desperate pleading looks without offering a single glance of pity or forgiveness. Witnessing that completely toxic mess finally removed from my daily life brought me an overwhelming sense of absolute freedom that I had never truly experienced before in my entire life. Looking back on this exhausting emotional ordeal, I deeply realized that offering blind tolerance to manipulative relatives only creates fertile ground for their selfish greed to grow unchecked, eventually destroying everything you have worked so hard to build. The biological bond of sharing the same bloodline should never serve as a permanent free pass to excuse deceitful behavior or justify blatant violations of federal law against the people who trusted you most. But actively choosing to protect your hard-earned personal assets alongside your fundamental self-respect remains the essential prerequisite for living a dignified life with your head held high, regardless of whether your opponent happens to be your closest family member. Decisively cutting off those highly toxic relationships may feel incredibly painful at first, but enforcing that difficult boundary represents the greatest possible path to securing a peaceful and prosperous future. For myself, I sincerely thank everyone who patiently followed my difficult personal journey until the very last moments of this story. Life always contains harsh truths, and standing up to protect yourself even from your own relative eyes is never an easy task for anyone. What do you honestly think about my decisive final choice to permanently remove my toxic family? Please leave a comment sharing your thoughts below. And don't forget to press the subscribe button to follow along with our upcoming dramatic stories.